And I'll start by noting that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. Please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. And to keep the meeting on schedule, please wait your turn to speak and hold questions until the end of each speaker's presentation. If you wish to be recognized to speak, please raise your hand so that the chair can call on you. There is a chat function, but please remember that those who are calling in by phone cannot see the chat, and everything typed in the chat may be posted in the public meeting minutes. I'll do my best to verbally communicate relevant information that appears in the chat and would encourage folks to share pertinent information verbally rather than relying on the chat. For participants who are on the phone, press *6 to turn your microphone on and off to make a comment or question. And as a reminder, these meetings are public and are subject to the state's open meeting law. Under the state's open meeting law, all votes during an online meeting must be taken by roll call. This will require each member to activate their microphone to give their vote and then turn their mic back off. Finally, if at any time during this meeting you require technical assistance, please contact Kim for help at kim.havey@minneapolismn.gov. Are there any questions? All right, seeing head shakes, I will now call this meeting to order and ask Kim to call roll so we may verify the presence of a quorum. Council members, when Kim calls your name, please say present. And we will go through more serious introductions afterward.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. All right, Hannah Jenkins.
Present.
Max Dalton.
Present.
Indigo David Liu.
Present.
Moran Demisi. Mark Denon.
Present.
Tess Dornfeld.
Present.
Matthew Douglas May.
Present.
Sandy Fazeli. Lauren Fleming.
Present.
Maddie Henderson.
Present.
Define Islam. Leslie Jackson. Anna Johnson.
Present.
Toya Lopez. Barbara Lundy. Nick Minderman.
Here.
Suzanne Savinick Hansen.
Present.
Jacqueline Cepeda.
Present.
Aaron Niehoff.
Present.
Okay, we have 13 commissioners present. That is a quorum.
Fantastic. And is there anybody who's calling in by phone whose name was not said? I see a phone number on here.
Sorry,
They are
me.
not.
Okay.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself right now, I guess, just to
Just so you
put
know,
that
I'm
on.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name's Hillary Johnson, and I am taking notes for the meeting today for a project called Documenters. It's a program of Pillsbury United Communities, and it's part of a bigger project across the upper Midwest to promote community journalism and public meeting accessibility. So I'm just taking notes.
Thanks. Welcome, Hillary.
Thanks.
All right, so as we get going here, so as Kim already mentioned, it's being staffed by him. And then, let's see, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolis.mn.gov. Our first two items of business are the adoption of our agenda for tonight's meeting and acceptance of the minutes from the the December meeting. And we can combine those items with the right motion. So does anybody want to move to approve the agenda and the minutes? And any discussion?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Anna. Anybody
This is
second?
Susanna Kenson, I'll second.
Thank you. All right, any discussion, any changes to the agenda or to the minutes? Hearing none, tossing it over to Kim to call roll.
Okay, great. Just say yes or no, yay or nay. Hannah Jenkins,
Yay.
Max Dalton,
Yay.
Indigo, David Liu,
Yay.
Maren Demisi, Mark Denon,
Yay.
Tess Dornfeld,
Yay.
Matthew Douglas May,
Yay.
Sandy Fazeli, Warren Fleming,
Yay.
Maddie Henderson,
Yay.
Divine Islam, right. Leslie is just joining in.
Hi, everybody. Happy
Hi,
New
Leslie.
Year.
Hi.
Hi.
We're just going through the kind of roll call on the agenda and minutes. I don't know if you had did you have any changes or suggestions on the agenda or minutes that we should take into consideration before we finalize a vote?
No.
Okay. All right. You are next up to vote in favor of it, or yes or no on the agenda and minutes from 12:15.
I vote yes.
Great. Thank you. Anna Johnson,
Yes.
Toya Lopez, Barbara Lundy, Nick Minderman,
Yes.
Suzanne Savnik Hansen,
Yes.
Jacqueline Cepeda,
Hi.
Aaron Niehoff.
Aye.
Great. We have 15 yays, so that motion passes.
Great. All right, so our first item on the agenda is reading our land acknowledgement statement. So as we meet here today, we are reminded that Minneapolis is situated on the homelands of the Dakota people, an area that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. It is home to Indigenous people from more than 30 different nations. As a city, we have a responsibility to care for the land on which we live and work and all its natural surroundings. This stewardship is an integral part of our involvement in this commission, and we honor it as we begin our meeting. We now open the space to discuss ways in which we can support Indigenous people in our community. And then somebody is not muted, but it's making a lot of noises. I think, Sean, that might be you, if you're calling in with a phone number ending in 89. Kim, are you able to mute it on your end? Okay, thank you. Cool. So I guess the one thing that I will mention, and I know that this has been out for almost a year at this point, but there is a podcast out there called Stolen that is hosted by Indigenous woman from Canada. And in the podcast, she is looking for a 23-year-old who went missing in Montana, who happened to be part of Native peoples there. So if you are interested in hearing more about, the search for those who are missing, I think it's a really interesting podcast. So again, it's called Stolen, the Search for Jermaine. And it's looking into the disappearance of Jermaine Charlo.
I'll sort of piggyback on that and say there's another podcast called This Land, hosted by Rebecca Nagel. Very similar themes and focus, I believe, previous season or this season on boarding schools. And these are all issues with the caucuses coming up. Probably a lot of us have been getting emails about caucuses and resolutions. I haven't seen any specific prefab resolutions, but it's always something worth bringing up at your caucuses and introduce a resolution addressing the Indian Child Welfare Act has been both under attack and largely unenforced. Minnesota has really poor rates of Indigenous children being placed in inappropriate settings. So that's just one thing that you could introduce a resolution about that we should be addressing better. Thanks.
Anybody else? Mark?
Yeah, just had a kind of an interesting tidbit to share. In our neighborhood in Bryn Mawr, behind the Bryn Mawr Elementary School, there is an area that's kind of established for their nature-based preschool. And what's really neat is they've posted a number of signs in both English and Ojibwe, and also some information placards that explain, the origin of the land, that it's based on Ojibwe land, and it's just a really neat reminder of where we're at and what we're doing. And I think the connection to the nature preschool is really appropriate.
Thanks for sharing that.
I'll actually add on to that. It's also behind Unwatan Middle School, and Unwatan is an Ojibwe word. So there's a link there, I think, that has gone back quite a long way to when the school was named.
Thanks, Nick.
All interesting facts that I did not know about. So before we go around and do some deeper introductions of each of us, I think it would be helpful just to start with a little bit of grounding again, like we did back in January last year, just about what Ciac is, what our role is. And then just because we've been meeting virtually here for, well, some of us who've been on Ciac for longer than last year have been doing this virtually for a while now, but for all of us, we've never met in person. And so given that the Metro mobility person was not able to make it today, we figured it would be a really good opportunity to just take some more time to get to know each other, especially as we also have some new people who are on Ciac now. So before I pass it around to different introductions, I'm going to start with my presentation. And do let me know if you can't see it. Oh my gosh, it has been so long since I've played one of these from here. Anybody know which button I need to press?
think the share button.
I think
slideshow. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reminder.
What was that? Oh, slideshow. There we go. Thank you. Can you guys see this okay? Or did it just die?
Yes.
Looks
Okay.
good.
No, it's good.
Fantastic. I cannot see any of you, so take yourself off of mute and start saying my name if you need anything. So the members of Ciac now, we have 19 members in total. And so this is just to show kind of the geographic spread that we have across the city. There are definitely a few wards that we're missing some folks from, but it's definitely a better sort of skew than we've had in past years. Just some highlights from our enabling resolution and why and how Ciac was formed. Ciac was formed all the way back in 1990, but as something else, and the name has changed over the years. But our most recent enabling resolution was passed in 2018, I want to say. And in that enabling resolution, Council said that Ciac membership should be reflective of those who live and work within the city of Minneapolis. We are allowed to suggest environmental priorities for city policies, programs, and projects using criteria, including but not limited to things like community impact, timeliness, environmental justice, and equity. And we are supported by the Sustainability Division, which is headed up by Kim. Just some of the highlights from our bylaws. We need a quorum of members present to be able to meet, and Ciac's quorum when we have 19 members is 10 people. If there are people who end up leaving Ciac, the quorum itself will shift to represent the 50% plus. And voting itself is done with those who are present, and voting by proxy isn't allowed. In time-sensitive cases, draft comments can be submitted by the chair or vice chair as long as the document states that comments are subject to review and acceptance by Ciac. So if there's some big issue that has popped up, we're between meetings, and Ciac really does want to, make some sort of position or statement on the topic, it's something where we can submit something in writing saying that it's draft and then be able to vote on it at the next Ciac meeting. Our bylaws also state that the chair and vice chair shall be elected within Ciac by a majority vote of members present at a meeting. The election will be held no later than the second meeting of the calendar year. So our next meeting being in February, assuming nothing goes wrong between now and then, we will be holding our elections for chair and vice chair. And officers serve 1-year terms. And do note that in our bylaws, we are able to replace members and work on an open enrollment process if members miss 3 consecutive monthly meetings without contacting the Ciac chair, vice chair, or city staff person. So if you aren't going to be able to make it to a meeting, please just let us know, and we'll continue to work with you to make sure that you're having a voice in these meetings, even if you're not able to be present at them. But we do want to make sure that we are hearing from you and not just having people in name only on the board. Ciac shall meet at least quarterly. A schedule for regular meetings stating the dates and times shall be adopted no later than the second meeting of the calendar year. So on this front, the entire time that I've been on Ciac, which has been since 2017, we've always had monthly meetings and an occasional special meeting. But that schedule itself can change depending on what we all feel is appropriate and needed for the activities we're working on. And at this point, all Ciac meetings are open to the public, and because we're holding them virtually, they're recorded and posted to the city's YouTube channel. And these are subject to change if the city determines standard bylaws for all advisory boards and commissions. Right now, these bylaws were passed by Ciac, but if the city clerk decides that we should have standard bylaws. That's something that would replace the bylaws that we have at present. So we are not the only commission here in the city of Minneapolis. The city itself has about 50 advisory boards and commissions, affectionately termed ABCs. So a lot of different shortenings to terms. So if you ever hear an acronym that you really aren't sure what it means, please just say something. So the other ABCs that are managed by the Sustainability Division also happen to be the advisory boards and commissions that Ciac intersects with the most frequently. So the Northern and South Side Green Zones, the Energy Vision Advisory Committee, the Clean Energy Partnership, and then the Food Council, which actually now resides with the Health Department, but started out with the Sustainability Division. So what do we do? According to our enabling resolution, we are allowed to provide advice to city staff and officials on the environmental effects of city policies, programs, and projects. When it comes to something like state legislation, state agencies, utility companies, we can provide recommendations on things outside the control of the city of Minneapolis, but the advice itself needs to be directed to the city of Minneapolis staff and elected officials. We cannot write directly to state officials or those outside the city of Minneapolis structure. So do keep that in mind. I know that kind of ties our hands in certain ways, but remember that you are an individual and you are allowed to put pressure on others as you see fit as your own self. As a look back, some of the different topics that we've worked on, and some of these are from a little while ago. This playground picture is actually regarding something that happened back in 2016 when Ciac passed a letter letting the city and the park board know that they should try to not use crumb rubber on playgrounds just because of the different effect that crumb rubber has on both the environment and also on children's health and development. We've worked on the bring your own bag policy and the many shapes and forms that it's taken. Sustainable building policy, thinking about electric vehicles, and then also we've been really passionate about Roof Depot and what happens with the Roof Depot site as the city considers expanding its Hiawatha campus. I think it's also helpful to mention, especially since chair and vice chair elections will be next month, it's helpful to mention what the chair and vice chair do. So the chair sets the monthly agenda, liaisons with city staff in preparation for meetings, sends letters on behalf of the city to the commission to city staff, council, or the mayor, depending on the topic, and then facilitates Ciac meetings and can call special meetings as needed. This has happened a lot in 2021, more than it has happened in any of my other years as Ciac chair. I'd never missed a meeting until 2021, and then this year I think I missed 5. So the vice chair is as needed, filling in on any of the tasks above in cases where the chair is unable to fulfill their duties. So shout out to Anna on this one. Both positions themselves are malleable. There's nothing in our bylaws or enabling resolution that says what the chair and vice chair have to do, besides the ability to call special meetings and submit something that is in draft form for consideration prior to a Ciac meeting if need be. So the positions themselves are malleable. Past chairs and vice chairs have been more hands-off or hands-on depending on their preferred leadership style. So I will say, though, with how busy the Sustainability Division is, having somebody who is able to be hands-on is incredibly helpful and valuable, not only to Kim and his team, but also to us as a commission. So start thinking about whether or not it's something that you would be up for running for, and we're going to be taking nominations at the end of today's meeting. So now I want to throw it back to all of you, and I can I'll just call people as you raise your hands and try to keep a list of like what who's gone and who hasn't. But we'd love to get to know you more. What pronouns do you use? What neighborhood or area of Minneapolis do you live in, or work in if you don't happen to live in Minneapolis? What is your background, experience, and interests in the environment and climate action? What motivated you to join Ciac? And what's the top thing you want people to know about you? At the same time as being able to talk through these different questions, we also have a Jamboard that's been put together. So I'm going to drop that into the link. And so if you have other particular ideas and things that you want to put into some of the different slides and boards that are in there, definitely feel free to do that. And if you haven't used Jamboard before, just as a quick show, this is Jamboard. I will drop the link into the chat here in a minute, but you can just grab a sticky note and put whatever you want to on here. So for me, one of the things that I am most concerned about is about Roof Depot and what happens with the site. So I can just, drop it in on here and drag this sticky note around. So, and as you click through up here on these top arrows, this is where you can find some of the different questions that we've posed up at the top. I'm going to fix that. All right. Oh, thanks, Kim, for getting the link into the chat. I am going to stop sharing. I'm also going to just drop the questions into the chat just so that you can see what some of those questions were if you don't remember by the time it gets around to you, because honestly, I would not remember even right now what the questions were. So it's going to take me a second to do that. But while I'm working on it, is there somebody who wants to share first? I don't want to keep hearing my voice.
I can go first.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, no problem. Did you put the questions in the chat?
I'm working on it. Unfortunately,
oh, no worries.
Formatted very well in the PowerPoint, so when I was pasting them in,
it's
they
okay.
just looked like
I can riff.
I'll try to put them in too. I got them here. I'll copy and put them in. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Hannah Jenkins. I think my name when I joined was Hannah Bone. I've gone through a name change, but Jenkins is my new legal last name. And my pronouns are she, her. I live in the Lyndhurst neighborhood, so southwest Minneapolis, very close to Lake Harriet, and I love it. The top thing, background, experience, interests. I work for Minnesota Wastewise Foundation, which is a nonprofit that's affiliated with Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. We assist businesses and multifamily properties with waste reduction and recycling projects. But I come from a background in cultural anthropology and international development. So I'm really just interested in helping people solve problems in their lives and doing that through kind of participatory development, evaluation. And I was really excited for the opportunity to join Ciac. I have been interested in getting more involved in just what's going on in my city. I moved here in 2016 and I love Minneapolis and I want to see it thrive. And then I guess the top thing I want people to know about me, I don't know, I think one of the more new pieces of my identity is I am a new mom, and that is really important to me that I get to raise my son, and I'm really excited to introduce him to all things Minneapolis, especially our great parks, and yeah, so that's me.
Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah.
I will start picking on people. So Mark, I'm tossing it to you.
Well, thanks, Aaron. Hey, folks, I'm Mark Denon. My wife and I have now lived in Minneapolis for 5 years. We're in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. Absolutely love it. It was a great fit for us. We've been lifelong residents of the Twin Cities area, but loved the city, wanted to be closer to it, wanted to be a part of it. So that's what brought us here. I've been interested in environment going way back. In fact, one thing that's kind of a little tidbit on me, my high school ring, you folks might remember when you get high school class rings, you could pick a logo, and a lot of people would put football or cheerleading on it. I actually had an ecology symbol on my class ring, and that was back in '78. So been doing this environmental thing since way before it was really a thing. Translated that to my job. I'm environmental director at Cummins, which is a Fortune 150 global manufacturer of engines and power generation products. My role at Cummins is I lead our environmental strategy and goals for our global facilities and operations. We have over 100 manufacturing plants, tech centers, office buildings, thousands of distributors, literally everywhere around the world. This is really my happy place. We've set science-based targets for our company, including a 50% reduction in our facility footprint by 2030, carbon neutral by 2050, very aggressive goals for water conservation, waste reduction, on-site and off-site renewable energy, and so on. My background personally is environmental engineering. I got my BS and MS at University of Minnesota, so I'm a proud Gopher. And I guess the last little thing that might be interesting about me is, and by the way, I'm use he, him pronouns. I've been bike commuting since I was 15 years old. And so that's over 45 years now. So way before it was a cool thing to do. And so I'm definitely committed to that.
Thanks, Mark. Is there anybody who wants to volunteer to go?
I'll go next.
Okay, Lauren, go for it.
I'm Lauren Fleming. I use she, her pronouns. I actually moved in July, so I'm not in Ward 8 anymore. I'm in Ward 10 in the South Uptown area. So I bought a house this summer. Great time to do it, as if you haven't heard. I'm an architect. I work at Miller Dunwoody, which our office is downtown Minneapolis. So I used to bike commute when I was commuting to work. But one thing about working in architecture is obviously like the building kind of sector is it's like sustainability all the time. We talk about it constantly at work. I found that was something with my friends who didn't work in architecture, like never thought about sustainability. And so one of the reasons I joined Ciac was sort of to hear other people's perspectives and different knowledge bases about things that might kind of cross over into what I do in buildings. I've been at my job for almost 7 years and mainly have worked as MSP Airport as my client. So the airport is always sort of looking for new sustainable ways that they can improve their buildings or add a solar array on a parking garage and that sort of stuff. So with the pandemic slowing down the airport a little bit, I've been doing some other work at other airports like Jackson Hole Airport, so another place where they it's on national park land, so we did like geothermal well out there and stuff like that. So just kind of like when you're in the building, like building performance is super important, and things you should know about me. Well, I feel like I just have a lot of hobbies. You can see my plant wall. I like knit during meetings to stay focused. I'm knitting a sweater right now. I've got like my watercolor in my office, so that's all.
Tess, go for it.
Okay, hey. My name is Tess Dornfeld. I use she and her, and I have also moved. I'm now in Ward 1 in the Holland neighborhood in Northeast, and love Northeast. I grew up in southern Minnesota, and I've spent quite a bit of time in northeastern Minnesota. Did my undergrad at Carleton in sustainability and environmental studies. Spent about a decade working in all sorts of different community organizing, international development. Spent a few years working abroad here and there, and then recently went back to school and did a master's in global environmental politics at American University in DC, which I finished in the middle of 2020 and moved back to Minneapolis. That, yeah, pretty much sums up my background. Similar to what others have said, I was really interested to be really intentional about being more involved in the community, and that's what drew me partly to join Ciac. Also, I was hoping to do a bit more social and professional networking, which hasn't been working out so well so far, but it's been great to get to know all of you virtually at least. And I will say on that note, I'm job searching, so that's something to know about me. And I have a running list of issues that we have looked at or that I think we should, but I'll add those on the Jam board and pass it along.
Awesome. And I will say too, with regard to the networking component, definitely something that's missing in this virtual world. If anybody is job searching like yourself, Tess, I am always happy to talk about my network and figuring out if there are certain connections that I might have that might be useful. So that goes for anybody who is on here. Reach out to me. Always happy to talk. With that, I will pass it along to Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Jacqueline. I use they, them pronouns. I currently live in Ward 9. I'm pretty close to Powderhorn Park. I have done environmental activism for about a decade. I've done stuff in Mexico, on the ships up near the Arctic Circle when Shell was trying to drill up there. So I'm most known for teaching people how to drive boats safely for nonviolent direct action, as well as tree climbing. My background also is environmental stewardship, youth programming in Los Angeles. I'm from California, so that's a lot of what I've done. And I moved here 4 years ago to work on the Stop Line 3 campaign. And I've also done stuff with youth here. So my background is mostly community organizing, and I went back to school for an environmental engineering degree. So it's really cool to hear about what you're doing, Mark, and what you have done. And what motivated me to join was to know a little bit more about infrastructure in the city. I'm really interested in sustainable building practices and wanted to be, just more plugged into what's going on. I guess what I would like people to know about me is that I actually am a carpenter for work right now. So that's been my thing. So I'm in the process of learning how to make bowls. So that's been fun.
I was going to say, you couldn't have picked almost a colder place than coming here from Los Angeles.
That's true.
Any volunteers?
I can jump in.
Okay.
This is great. I'm happy to hear more about folks' background. My name is Anna Johnson. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Phillips. We bought a house here over the summer also, but I've lived in Central neighborhood, Longfellow, Lynn Lake in the past. And my background and interest in the environment and climate action kind of go back a long way. I was very like outdoorsy as a child, and kind of got interested in like making sure that was available to others going like into the future, and got concerned about the welfare of the planet because I was able to enjoy it and hang out in the trees and on the lakes and really enjoyed it. So it started early, and I have a background in public policy, partly because I realized that we create our own rules for society and that environmentalism and environmental protection was lacking in public policy, and we as a society have ability to change that. So that was my motivation for pursuing that, and I have a Master of Public Policy from the Humphrey School with a focus on energy and environmental policy. And I currently work at Fresh Energy, which is an organization that does works to what is our tagline? I'm on the spot. Just move Minnesota towards a clean, carbon neutral, equitable economy as quickly as possible. And yeah, just interested in joining Ciac to get more involved in neighborhood level, city level projects to make sure our city is livable and equitable now and into the future. I think that's everything. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Anna. Indigo, you had your hand up. Do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Indigo. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a senior in high school right now, and I've been involved in a lot of like youth environmental activism for the past couple years. Currently I'm involved with Minnesota Youth for Climate Justice. I really want to go into environmental engineering, so it's great to hear that from you all. I really am I was interested in joining Ciac just to kind of like what a lot of people have said, learn what's happening in my city. I forgot to mention, born and raised Minneapolis. I grew up on the north side. Now I live in northeast Minneapolis in the Sheridan neighborhood. I'm really interested in environmental justice, and I know this isn't a city issue, but like especially the HERC, it's the trash incinerator that's polluting the north side. Thanks all.
Matthew next.
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Douglas May. I use he, him pronouns. I live in the East Bedeh-McCoska neighborhood in Ward 10, right by Bedeh-McCoska, which I went skiing on earlier today, which was super fun. But background-wise, I work at the Center for Energy and Environment, and I got my start there assisting home energy audits. So I got to go to tons of folks' homes all over Minneapolis and the Twin Cities and talk about energy efficiency, look at insulation, install light bulbs, all that fun stuff. So that was a really great way to just kind of get many different slices of life here in the city. And now I work as a community program associate, helping city governments around Minnesota with different sustainability and energy efficiency initiatives. So I joined Ciac because I really wanted to learn more about how city governments work and what the levers are at the city level to, make efficiency and sustainability change happen. And last year, I feel like I learned a ton from everyone. really enjoyed being a part of making our comments to different city bodies. And yeah, I guess what's the top thing to know about me? That's hard. I guess, yeah, environmental justice and equity is a big interest of mine and something I appreciate that we talk about a lot here. And I also signed up for a ski race, the Lop It around the lakes, which I'm actually really scared about because it's 20 miles and I've never even skied like 12. So we'll see how that goes. I can report back in February, but thanks.
Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, so after Matthew, we have Leslie, then Maddie, then Suzanne, and then Max. So Leslie, tossing it over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Leslie Jackson. And I say I'm a recent graduate. Well, I feel recent from school because of the pandemic. Excuse me, from the University of Minnesota, Environmental Science, Policy, and Management. I also hold a degree at Augsburg, BA in art, and that my concentration was photography. I have associates in biology, so I'm really a geek. My dream was to be a National Geographic photographer, so I still lay on the ground and take pictures of bugs and come to your house muddy with bugs in jars and things. So I'm not creepy, but I just have a fascination for nature and life. What brought me to this group is my interest for how things are being ran in the city of Minneapolis. I'm a born and raised Minnesotan. My playground was Bassett Creek off of Highway 55 in Thomas. So seeing the changes that's happened in a family home right across the street from the creek is just unbelievable. So I changed from studying nursing into environmental science to make a difference and to come back home to a city that I grew up in. It just seemed like growing up in Minnesota is like Little House on the Prairie. You know, the neighbors, everybody was friendly, and it was a very diverse community in which I lived in, being Black and Native. A lot of people might not know that, but I am. And it's just the changes I see, and through the disparities because of my skin tone that I faced coming of older age, it's unbelievable. And yet I still want to help others to have a sustainable life with clean air, soil, and water, so we can have a lasting sunlight to give us a healthy glow in our skin. So I guess I'm kind of odd being who I am and with my skin tone, this hue, because everywhere I went, from restoration work in Chicago with the Field Museum, I was always asked, why aren't there more Black people or people that look like me that do this work? And I'm not a spokesperson for the Black people. I think it's just where you grow up in your passion and your love for the environment. Like Ann said, she was where she grew up, trees and all the beauty, and everybody has the story of being outside and that connection. So I think it's, you know, where you live and where your playground is. I also grew up in the house with Prince. Yes, very first band before he became famous. I got rug burns to prove us wrestling on the floor in the front room. Okay, so anyway, that's another story. But that's me, and I'm thankful for everybody here. I've learned a lot, and I'm still growing. Coming to be an older person, going back to school to have just straight 12 and a half years of education. So coming in the real world and being able to utilize my degree to help others have a great life is my goal. My thing is the plastic, as you people know, and not shutting down hurt, but managing in a different way. So I feel that managing the way we live here in our beautiful city, and welcome everybody that's not from Minnesota here, and the work that you do. And I thank you all for your time. Thank you for the work everybody does.
Thanks, Leslie. Tossing it over to Maddie.
Hello. That was a good good little intro there because I am not from Minnesota. I very recently, feels very recently that I moved to Minnesota, but it's actually been a year and a half. I am from Southern Illinois and I graduated from Purdue in Indiana with a bachelor's in biomedical engineering because I thought my passion was health. And then in college, I also was like on the side working with my student sustainability council and did things like creating a composting program and doing a lot of education on that sort of thing, and like actually made a difference in our like university and community. And no one had ever, I'd never thought that that could be my career. And then someone was like, why isn't that your career? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm studying biomedical engineering. I don't know how to combine those. So I decided to just come work for Medtronic in Minnesota and kind of work on converging those two passions. So I moved here in the summer of 2020. And I applied to be on Ciac to like maintain that connection to the environment, and also get to know Minneapolis better as a city. I do really love it so far. It's a great city, great state. And so in the meantime, I guess one of my favorite things about like in the sustainability world is like circular economy and like designing for sustainability and stuff in our more consumer goods. So at Medtronic, I've helped found an environmental action group among employees that's just gotten off the ground in the last couple months, and proud to be working towards pushing Medtronic and other corporations in a more sustainable direction. And I've actually just finished applying to grad school for some sort of sustainable design sort of next step degree, and then want to see where I can go from there. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here and be in Minnesota. And I also have started doing baby cross-country skiing. I've never skied 12 or 20 miles either, but I'm getting much better than I was last year. So that's me, I think.
Thanks, Betty. Suzanne?
All right. I'm Suzanne Savannah Canson, and I work at Abbott. I don't work at Abbott. I work at Allina Health, but Abbott is part of Allina Health. And if I were actually in person, I would be at the Cummins, which is right next to Abbott Northwestern. I have been at Allina for the last year and a half, but I've been in the sustainability world for over 20 years. As a graduate student at the University of Minnesota, as a scrappy graduate student in conservation biology, I picked up a campus sustainability dissertation topic, and then my esoteric dissertation topic became popular, and there got to be jobs like the one I have now. But at the time, I think I still think I was the first person who had sustainability in my job title back in like 99. And so I've got a PhD in conservation biology. I hear that there's another Carleton grad who is also on our committee. And so I've been in the sustainability field for a long time. And what motivated me to join this was to be able to connect what I do with work with our community. So, and I don't know if it's a top thing, but it might be interesting for you all. Back when I was my first time in graduate school, which was doing my master's down at Duke in their environmental school, there was no environmental justice classes, so I made one up. And at that time, with a couple other students, we went to go, actually got to visit Warren County, North Carolina, which was usually known as the beginning of the modern environmental justice movement, which was not too far away from where I was actually in school. So I still have a poster from that said Detoxify in Warren County, North Carolina, that I used to hang in my office when I was at the after I was at the University of Minnesota. I was at Macalester College, and I ran their sustainability program for 12 years. So when I was at Macalester, I had that poster hanging on my wall. So I have a long history with an interest in environmental justice and all things sustainability and environment. Oh, and I forgot she, her pronouns.
Thank you, Suzanne. Max?
All right, thanks, Erin. Again, hello, everyone. My name is Max Dalton. I use he, him pronouns. I currently live in the Logan Park neighborhood of Northeast, but I've actually been in Northeast since 2014. Previously lived over by Psycho Susie's and Betty Dangers, if you all know where that is. So been here for quite a while. As far as my background, I currently work for Washington County Public Health and the Environment. Started that job February 24th of 2020, so it's been kind of a roller coaster, to say the least. But in that job, I work with cities and townships on waste and recycling programs. And I also work through a partnership with Ramsey and Hennepin counties to do some legislative support efforts. So kind of a wide array of experience the last couple of years. But prior to having this job, I worked for an organization called the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization. Actually overlapped work time there with Anna. But that's kind of where I got my start really in the environmental world. So the MWMO focuses on water quality and quantity issues in the Twin Cities metro area. So kind of got exposed to that side of the world, and that's what prompted me to go to grad school while I was working there. So I also have a master's in science, technology, and environmental policy, and graduated at 2019. But yeah, so always been very environmentally minded. Grew up on a farm in western Wisconsin, so there's always that sustainability aspect that comes with that. But yeah, that's part of why I wanted to join Ciac. You know, I was looking for that next step, that next way to get involved with a city that I love and plan to stay here for quite the extended future. But yeah, I guess the top thing to know about me is I'm kind of entering that phase of life where I'm thinking about home ownership. So I've heard plenty of, I don't know if I'd call them horror stories, but I know it's been a crazy time for home ownership. So yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Max. Nick?
Good evening. My name is Nick Minderman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm another Ward 7 resident. Currently, we're stacking up here. I also live in Bryn Mawr. I don't know exactly where you live, Mark, but I'm I'm on Thomas, just a couple blocks away from the school. And
I'm on Russell. So
okay,
not too far. Yep.
So you're a couple blocks away. But prior to that, I spent 8 years in Ward 3. So I just moved here in 2020. I was right near the Central and Hennepin area. Moved in a couple of different houses, but always in Ward 3 for many years prior to that. So technically both sort of southeast and northeast Minneapolis at different times. Top things about me. I'm a recovering geotechnical engineer. I don't know, you can take that however you want. But I'm really focused on database decisions about environmental issues. The geotechnical piece is actually a little bit consequential to that because geotechnical engineering is the marriage of civil engineering and geology. And so going back to my undergrad, geology and climate has always been something that's been hiding behind and has wanted to pop up and slowly made its way to the surface to be the primary focus of what I do on a daily basis. But it took some time. And building a landfill in upstate New York and then not wanting to do that ever again to get where I am now. So my background, my undergraduate degree was from the University of Minnesota. I'm originally from southeastern Wisconsin near Milwaukee, but that was a long time ago, so I don't consider myself a Wisconsinite anymore. And then I had 2 graduate programs under my belt. echoing the generally highly educated group here, which I'm sure is a debate for us as Ciac, trying to represent the interests of broader Minneapolis. But I have an environmental planning degree from Rutgers, and then I spent about 2 years at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. So when we talk about the way Scandinavians do it, I definitely have some deep understanding in some of the great things they do, and also some of the policies that are needed in order to enable those great things to happen. Because it's not just about science, but also about the way you lay it down. Other things about me, my day-to-day job is overseeing research projects to support energy efficiency programs at Xcel Energy. So I sit on a couple of different groups that have kind of a relationship with things like Ciac. One of those is the U.S. Green Building Council Minnesota Community Advisory Board. So thinking about how we improve the way the built environment works. And the other is a super esoteric group called the International Energy Program Evaluation Conference. But it's kind of a really great thing to pull into an organization like Ciac, because they're focused on not just what people try to do, but how those pushes turn into motivations for the end user, which I know in Ciac we spend a lot of time thinking about how the city can flex the different muscles that it has to cause people to change the way individual citizens behave, whether it's energy consumption, transportation behaviors, whatever. And then my motivation, that's a lot about me and what I bring. My motivations, this is my 4th year on Ciac, and prior to that, I did spend 4 years on a different advisory committee, the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee, which, if you've never heard of it, is and one of those other ABCs, advisory boards and commissions, it's under finance. And their responsibility is to look at all the different ways that the city wants to invest in infrastructure. And it's the citizen input process that helps define which projects should be more or less important, which sounds really fascinating to some people, I'm sure. I decided to leave that group and apply for CLIC, partially because I felt like sometimes the projects that we got could have been affected by going upstream a little bit. And so I've really been focused on, in my years on Ciac, trying to think about things like the sustainable building policy that affect the project well before it gets to that capital funding point, so that sustainability is baked in throughout the process, not just something that gets comments at the end. And I think the other piece is transportation is the emerging tough nut to crack when it comes to carbon emissions, because there's a lot more individual actors and a lot more individual decisions about how people make transportation choices. And I have, through my environmental planning background, I feel like I have a lot to offer in how we tie together some of the other advisory boards and commissions to think about transportation issues with the broader climate issues. That's me.
All right. And since Barbara just hopped on, just so you're aware of what's going on, we are doing longer introductions since we're still meeting virtually, and here we are. So I don't know if you wanted to do your introduction next, having just jumped on, or if I should. Okay, I will go then. And also, besides Barbara, is there anybody else from Ciac who's hopped on? Okay.
I was just going to also say, Aaron and Barbara, that I did drop the questions that sort of, you can talk about whatever you'd like, Barbara. Just have a couple of prompting questions that, but just to tell us about yourself, that I did just put in the chat. So that's kind of where we're building that off of.
All right. So I will go before tossing it over to Barbara. So I'm Erin Niehoff. I use she, her pronouns. I now live in the Howe neighborhood of Minneapolis, which is part of Ward 12. The Howe neighborhood itself is part of Greater Longfellow. To put it in even more context, I'm like a 10-minute walk from the 38th Street light rail station, but to the east instead of to the west. I've been in Minneapolis for almost 14 years now, which sounds kind of crazy to me to say. And for a majority of that time, I actually lived in Ward 2. I'm actually kind of a relatively new person in the Howe neighborhood. I've never lived on this side of the river until 2019, October 2019. In terms of some of my like environmental background, I worked at Subway when I was in high school, and I noticed that we had a recycling program for the back of the house, but we didn't have one for the front of the house. And this was during a time when bottled water was becoming a huge thing. And so I was able to convince our franchise owner to actually implement front of the house recycling. I came out here for undergrad, and in my undergraduate degree, I kind of combined my human rights passions. I've been a member of Amnesty International since 2004, something like that. With a focus on climate change, I ended up writing my thesis on water rights in Israel-Palestine and how it's changed over time and how it might change in the future, especially considering climate change. I've continued to float around into different jobs here. I still am not entirely certain what I want to do with the rest of my life, but for a majority of the time that I've been on Ciac, I worked at a nonprofit organization called Environmental Initiative. For those of you who haven't heard, I ended up leaving that position in June of 2021. I had a lovely summer of being fun employed and spent time in London with my new niece. And I now work for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture in an outreach project consultant role. So the particular program that I'm working on is regulates the feed for animals, which includes both livestock, the chickens that we eat, the eggs that those chickens produce, other livestock like that, but then also companion animals, whether that be a horse, a gerbil, or a cat or a dog. So I'm still learning a whole lot more about that. My position itself is supposed to last for 3 years, and I'm trying to help them with expanding their outreach capabilities. But at the same time, most inspectors in that particular position or in the particular program, their onboarding takes 3 years. So trying to learn a lot really quickly to help out with more of that outreach component. I ended up joining Ciac while I was at Environmental Initiative because at the time, EI didn't really pick any particular positions. They mostly were a space that held, mostly an organization that held space for dialogue to bring people together across different perspectives to try to find solutions to environmental challenges. And I really wanted some place where I could be more vocal and passionate, and so that's why I ended up here on Ciac. But 2021 was my 4th year of being chair, and so I would like to hand it off to someone else. And I guess in terms of like some of the top things to know about me, while I am child-free by choice, I happen to have 2 dogs. I love dogs. And I am really, really excited about being an aunt. I happen to love kids, just don't want them for myself. And it's been such a joy to be able to see my niece over the last 6 months. And we are currently planning a trip to Norway, if that happens this summer, for my parents' 40th wedding anniversary and my niece's 1st birthday. All right. Barbara, do you feel ready to have it handed over to you?
Dalton. So what pronouns do you use? I use the feminine pronouns, the traditional feminine pronouns. And what neighborhood area of Minneapolis do you live in? I live in Linden Hills, and I'm on the Linden Hills Council here. What is the top thing you want people to know about you? Well, I want to help people. I do have I have a PhD in physics, and so I consider that a scientific background. And perhaps more reality about what can be achieved by, and also a few years of, indicated by my hair, perhaps other things, of experience that, so I may have more reality of what can be achieved in terms of changes and expectations than some of the rest of you might have. In fact, I feel that, yes, there's climate change and it's good to make plans, but I feel it wiser to make and put effort into mitigation plans, what to do when the climate changes and perhaps study of when it will change, than to expect a whole lot of response from either the public or individuals or corporations or just about anything. I could enlarge on that if you want, but for example, renewable energy is wonderful. Right now, there isn't any. It's clearly dark outside. There's no solar energy, and it's not very windy right now. So if you were relying on using renewable energy, you'd have to have it stored somehow, and there aren't any really practical ways of storing it. So what is my background, experience, and interests in the environment and climate action? I've been interested in that. I own farmland, and so I consider myself a farmer as well. And so conservation, as in terms of loss of topsoil and well, ability to grow crops and so forth has been an interest in mine for a long time. And I was interested. I did solar design of solar gathering things in the 70s, as well as been a member of the Minnesota Renewable Energy Society now, member and board member. So what motivated me to join Ciac? It seemed like an important commission to work on the environment and a possible place to let people know some of the practicalities of some of the things I was listening to. So that's what motivated me to join it. If you want any more, you can ask questions.
Great. I think that covers everybody for introductions, but is there somebody who has not gone? What was that, Barbara?
I'm sorry, I missed the earlier introductions. I would have enjoyed hearing from all of you.
Well, I think at this point we are getting into some old business and just upcoming stuff for future meetings. So I think before hopping into some of those announcements and stuff, I do want to reopen the floor just for a conversation around the chair and vice chair positions and see if there's anybody who would like to nominate themselves or nominate somebody else for the position. And if you are nominated by somebody else, we will ask you prior to putting you in the running.
Thanks, Erin. I would be interested in staying on as either chair or vice chair, depending on what's available and yeah, how it all shakes out. So yeah, just putting my name out there. I can nominate myself if that's helpful. Okay.
Leslie, I see that your hand is raised.
I was getting ready to nominate Ann.
Fantastic.
For chair.
Chair.
For chair. Ann Johnson for chair.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else who's interested in the chair position, or anybody who's interested in the vice chair position?
Can I nominate Barb for vice chair? Barbara?
You can certainly nominate her. We can definitely talk to her about if that's something that she wants to run for. I'm trying to look at your face right now, Barbara, and see what you're thinking of this idea.
I'd run, yes. I don't know who else is running, but it would interest me, yes.
Anybody else? And I will say too, and this is something that Anna's heard since she is the current vice chair, but I am happy to kind of, like, I'll still be on Ciac. I'm happy to play a somewhat advisor role or whatever to the chair if need be, help out, pass along, you know, the email lists and different things that I have that have helped me in the work that I've done. So I'm not disappearing off the face of the earth.
Sandy's not here, so I'm going to nominate Sandy to be vice chair.
I will certainly check in with her. She's not here tonight because it is her birthday, and so she had dinner with her sister and family. All right. And we will make sure to spread the word to the Ciac members who aren't present here tonight, just to make sure that they have an opportunity to try to get onto the ballot for February. But as a reminder, the vote will be happening in February unless something happens and the meeting is canceled. In the past, that actually has happened because of snowstorms and meeting in person, but in this virtual world, who knows? Maybe the internet crashes and dies that day. Whatever. Assuming the meeting moves forward, we will be holding the vote that day. And so if you want to vote in that process, please be here. No voting by proxy.
And you can take nominations after this meeting, you know, before we actually get to that next meeting. Ideally, we'd have beforehand be nominations, but it still could nominate from the floor even up to that meeting. So let me know if there's if you have questions, or I think Aaron did a good job talking about kind of what the responsibilities are, but really kind of looking at the year ahead and helping manage the agendas and facilitation, that kind of thing. So.
All right. Are there any updates or topics of discussion that we wanted to touch on from some of our past meetings? I know that there are a lot of things we've been doing in past meetings, but is there anything like with a timely update that we wanted to be talking about? I'll start first. Just I think that all of you should have received an email from me, hopefully, about the roof depot plans that have been moving and evolving over the last couple months. But I got an email from Brad Pass last week just about the city working on plans to move forward on demolition of the roof depot warehouse. So I don't know exactly like where everything stands right now. I wasn't able to participate in the session that they held last Thursday, but just wanted to put that out there.
I was there, and thanks for sending that around too, Erin. It was an excellent presentation. I have only seen a 10-minute video clip made available, I think, so far, but if the full recording becomes available, it was really good. I asked a lot of questions, and they did a great job covering a lot of the details and everything that has gone on. And it sounds like they have a majority of the council on board. And so I assume it's just sort of like Public Works technically still has the go-ahead to demolish the building, and they just need the council to take some action. So I don't know per se if there's a role for us right now, since it does sound like they would have the votes in their favor if something did come forward. But I'll keep an eye out on that as well.
And Hannah brought up a good point. I think I probably used a list that wasn't updated with Hannah, Maddie, and Suzanne and Marin's email addresses. So I will make sure to update my email list, and I will forward the message that I'd sent to the four people who I just mentioned. I guess just as another point for those who are new onto Ciac, we do have a Google Drive that we use for Ciac letters and other things that we put together. So I will also be adding you onto that drive here this evening after the meeting. So if you have any questions or can't figure out how to get into it, anything like that, feel free to reach out. Are there any other updates? Any updates that you'd want to share, Kim, from the Sustainability Division?
Yeah, we did, just had a couple of things kind of flurry at the end of the year. We did redeclare a climate emergency in solidarity with about 16 other cities. So we were basically following a similar template, asking for additional federal and state resources to focus on climate change and resilience and adaptation as well. And so that is, we're sort of forming sort of that's sort of the buy-in component of a coalition. We're also working together to support the Better Buildings Minnesota legislation at the state capitol. So as part of the climate emergency, we declared a number of things, one of which was to urge and continue to support the passage of legislation that would create a statewide building code that would lead a pathway towards net zero energy buildings by 2036. This is the third year we're going back to the legislature on that. And we have a really great coalition of cities that are part of it, many of which, a few extra, declared this climate emergency. So we're representing around a quarter of the Minnesota residents in these particular cities asking for this type of legislation. So, and these cities, including like Bloomington and Edina, Eden Prairie, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, in many cases are those cities that have the large-scale development, and we're really focusing on 4-story and up commercial buildings, which reside mainly in Minneapolis, not Minneapolis, but at least the metro area. And so we have a great representation from the metro area to hopefully get some passage of legislation that would create the pathway forward. So at least we're not creating buildings that continue to use fossil fuel to heat and cool themselves past 2036. So we have a 15-year timeline to figure out a way forward here. So that's something that we're really excited about. We are also under contract now with Urban Design Perspectives and Precipitate Architecture to project manage and facilitate our update of the Climate Action Equity Plan. I'm hoping we can bring them in next month in February. We have our next meeting on February 15th. So I hope we can bring them in, and we'll be talking about some of the different structures we're going to have there, including advisory, sort of overall advisory committee to the Climate Action Plan, as well as opportunities to participate in specific areas or topics around climate change, whether it might be transportation or what have you. So we're kicking that effort off. And of course, the work that was done last year on the science-based targets, we are proposing to bring forward to council, provide a report, and then the recommendations from Ciac with support from EVAC to adopt the fair share science-based targets and to use that as sort of the guidepost on the development of the carbon goals and strategies as part of the Climate Action and Equity Plan. So we have those pieces coming up. Just sort of perfunctory stuff. The I have sent out all the updates on when we're proposing to have our meetings. Those all been accepted, and we're not in conflict with any holidays, etc. So that third Tuesday of the month is generally the month or the time and date that we'll be meeting. Right now, we're going to be on virtual meetings until we hear differently. It's sort of like at least through February, but it's at some point we'll go back to in-person meetings or a hybrid. I'm not sure, but at this point we are still continuing with all virtual meetings into the near future as well. We just had the reorganization of the city council, so they are continuing in a similar committee mode. So I think I may have mentioned in notes that we'll be part of the POGO committee, and so that is going to be chaired by Council Member Allison. So those are a couple of things that have been going on since we sort of started the new year, and we will have continue to have crossover with some of our other committees, such as Clean Energy Partnership, which we're getting that sort of reconstituted since the council members that were on that are no longer in their council seats. So we'll have new council members that were nominated actually earlier today, but will be finalized in the council vote later this week. I'll leave it at that for right now.
I guess quick question I have for you, Kim. Do you happen to have a link to the 2-page summary for the 2021 year in review?
It's in the agenda.
Agenda.
It is, yeah, it is in the LIMS agenda, and there we are getting it posted to our sustainability website this week, but I don't know if it was on there, so I didn't have a direct link, so I had to put it in the LIMS agenda as a PDF.
Tess, I cut you off.
I don't have access to the chat for some reason. I don't know if everyone else does. Yeah, when I hit the 3 dots, there's nothing in the menu for the chat where it usually is. I don't think I've missed anything, but just saying.
I have no idea what's going on.
No, I mean, unless anyone's put anything in there, I mean, our last thing is posted I have is 6:07.
I've got some stuff in there from 6:25. Anna posted something on we have a lot to lose. 16 Minnesota cities declare the climate emergency article.
Okay.
You're
right, I don't have that either.
I dislike Teams.
I don't love it either. No. Need to see. See if that did something.
Hello, Aaron. This is Sean Grishevsky. I have a quick announcement too.
Sure.
Hello, everybody. It was so great to hear your stories. And we're so excited about Minneapolis updating your climate action plan. And I live in Corcoran neighborhood. So I just wanted to let you all know about the Minneapolis Green New Deal organizing efforts with MN 350 that have active teams that are meeting with all 13 city council members to come up with funding strategies to raise way more money to implement our climate goals, potentially like Portland did. So I put in the Jamboard info so you can plug into that if you'd like. For example, meeting with our Ward 9 council person tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then the other invitation is if any of you would love to have you join us with our meeting with other environmental commissions from across Hennepin County tomorrow night at 6:30 Wednesday night, and it's in the Jamboard, or put in the link for the rccmn.co/Hennepin-communities. And the opportunity is there's the new climate department.
Sean, as a heads up, I did end up forwarding your email along to Ciac members right now. So if you're looking for an easier way to access the link, Ciac members, you should have something in your inbox. And that includes the people that I've missed in the past emails, the new folks. Okay. Sorry,
Okay,
Sean. Go.
perfect. And then the purpose for our meeting tomorrow night is because a lot of the issues that Minneapolis is facing require collaboration from other cities in the county. For example, reducing driving and, reducing VMT, trying to get better building policies, et cetera. We're looking at trying to launch some multi-city action planning this summer using the Met Council's new scenario planning tools that Mauricio shared last time at Ciac, so that we could line up the investments of the cities and the county to expand EVs, expand biking, reduce driving, et cetera. So we'd love to have any of you join us tomorrow night on Zoom if you're free. And my email is in there if you wanted to call or email me to find out how to plug in. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sean. I said thanks, Sean, on mute. Doesn't really help. Right. Are there any other matters folks want to bring before the commission before we adjourn?
I'd like to ask, I've been bringing up the scooters issue for a year now, and it looks like we're planning not to hear from them until after the contract is complete, which seems like nice for us to hear about, but not really effective for us to be involved. And so I wonder about whether we could have any input. I don't know exactly who or what is involved in those contracts, but particularly I've never been able to get a straight answer about what sort of charging setup the different companies use. And I know a lot of the scooter share companies have basically like a gig worker model for their charging, where people drive around and just pick up as many scooters as they can. And so that adds a lot of vehicle miles and emissions, and is also a really inefficient way to charge them, because every single scooter is getting picked up no matter how charged it is or not. And there's also some research showing that scooter trips don't really displace any trips. They would be made by bike or transit or walking anyway. And I just think it's worth bringing that into the process before the contracts are complete, especially in terms of the charging. And I think that's a pretty simple thing that we should be asking of whoever is providing the scooter share, is to not be working against our climate and environmental justice goals.
What I can say is that has been a difficult situation with getting the mobility manager here, because it's basically they've awarded the contract, but it hasn't been agreed to by all the different parties. So they're basically saying they can't talk about it. But what we can do is, I am willing to set up a meeting just with her and test or to get some questions specifically and tell her, can you answer this component about the charging? At least get that, if you have those questions, I can definitely get those to her and back. She doesn't want to meet because of the fact that she can't talk about specifics of the contract till it's finalized.
Saw a thumbs up from Tess on that.
I see Leslie has her hand up too.
Yep. Leslie.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair. I have a question. Are we following the possible future topics, or we can Tess, can I just ask about the reduction of the plastic, and are we going to discuss that, or is that something that you have that you want to tell us, Kim? Because I have some questions or ideals. Because I see that on the agenda.
Right. It wasn't meant to be a topic tonight, but a topic for the future. So one of the things that we could do is, and I'd love to get things planned out as much as we can in advance, we could discuss have a discussion on plastics as part of one of our agendas coming forward. And we could discuss offline what that might mean as far as like who we bring in or what the discussion topics will be or the questions that we want to pose, etc. But I'd be happy to work with you and the chairs / co-chairs on having a meeting or task force on that topic.
Okay, I'm just curious because I'm just going to put it out there. As far as reduction and things, my ideal, like they do the glass bottles, have a price on there like 5-cent small bottles, 15, 20 cents for these plastics to keep a clean flow going in out of hurt because they don't know how much dirty plastic that is coming from the recycling plant. And I think that would be an incentive to get a lot of the plastic bottles off the streets. So that's just an ideal that I have that would benefit the environment, the community, as well as that company that makes plastic logs or whatever they're making with it. So I'm just thinking about that out loud and was curious. So that's just my thought on plastics, and I'm always thinking about getting them out of here. Thank you.
This doesn't help with the upstream, but that actually is a good point, just to share something that's at least happening in my neighborhood of Minneapolis. And I don't know if this is like how far out it has expanded to so far, but I just joined Ridwell. I went to the transfer station in Bloomington with like old clothing and stuff, and they weren't taking it anymore. So this is just a new thing where they do actually come into your house and pick it up. So plastic film, clothing, fabric, and shoes, household batteries, and light bulbs. It is a service that you have to pay for, but and I haven't had a pickup yet, so I can't vouch for them. But I am really excited to try it out. So I know that they're in South and Southeast Minneapolis, so definitely check it out. And if you're interested in having a month free, I guess, try to send you a code. I haven't tried to do that yet. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. And I guess they have been talking with Kelly Kish and stuff. So I'm just grateful to hear that they're actually coordinating with the city on these things. Hannah.
Yeah, on the Ridwell front, I also have joined that service, and I actually spoke with their team today. So if anybody has any specific questions on that, I'd be happy to share what I've learned. The other thing I do want to mention specifically regarding kind of plastic reduction is that I am hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be starting work on a single-use plastic reduction campaign for Hennepin County, specifically referring to single-use plastic in restaurants. So if that's something that anybody else is interested in talking about, Minneapolis is in Hennepin County, so I'd love to kind of do as much as we can in Minneapolis as well as throughout greater Hennepin County.
Matthew?
Yeah, two things. One, my parents have been subscribed to Ridwell in Denver for over a year now, and they love it. Get to recycle a lot of things they wouldn't otherwise. And what I was curious about is if Ciac would be interested in making a comment about the Hennepin redesign project, which is the proposed plan to redesign Hennepin south of Franklin. And I think the comment period may be ending end of January, but it's an opportunity to provide input on clean transit. So
okay, clean transit. I was going to say, what is the redesign?
Yeah, I guess
I definitely second that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is just they're redesigning, and I think the intent is bike lanes and like protected bike lanes and more walking. And the comment period ends on Friday, but I actually just did an individual comment. So I can probably drop the link if people, at least as individuals, want to do that.
Yeah, if you could drop the link, that'd be terrific.
And I'll just add dedicated bus lanes, I believe, is also part of the plan.
Yeah, I think my understanding is there's dedicated bus rapid transit lanes, which are not in question. Those are for sure going to happen. The debate happening right now is whether to have protected bike lanes or more parking for cars outside of businesses. So the bike lanes would obviously be more climate friendly.
Nick?
I just want to remind folks that as Ciac, we don't necessarily have to stick to the public comment period. We advise the city council, and so I don't know what the procedural plan is for it, but I'm assuming that if the public comment period closes this week, we can probably work on a letter that would be composed and approved at the next meeting to be forwarded to the, I guess, interim public works director still for another month roughly, and the city council members stating Ciac's position. We did in the last Ciac term, we made comments about the 2040 plan that we could probably refer back to. And some of those comments were about transportation issues, so we wouldn't have to write a ton. I don't know, Kim, if you have any procedural comments about that as well.
No, I think that's correct. Obviously, it's best to get it in during the comment period, but ultimately, like many other things that we have commented on, you know, the Hiawatha project or other things, they've been comments to the city council and various staff. So certainly it's a long process. This is early on in the design process as well too. So I'm sure they would welcome comments after, but sooner the better. But we would be able, like you said, Nick, as a ABC, you can make comments at any time, basically, to the city council.
I think it's a really good idea. So, Nick, if you're okay with this, I'm going to follow up with you after this meeting just to start working on figuring out like where we need to pull information for like a draft letter, and hopefully we can have that for the February 15th meeting.
So I need to be a little bit careful since my wife works for Public Works and one of her peers is the project manager for the project. So that's why I know a lot about the process. Okay. But I should not be stepping too far into the actual comments that Ciac provides. But since others have expressed an interest, I'm happy to help guide through the process. I just want to make that clear.
I mostly just want help with finding the language that we've used in the past.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else? All right, I guess with that, we have completed the items on the agenda for this meeting. You should have an email from me with regard to the meeting that Sean was talking about that's taking place tomorrow around resilient climate cities. And you can always reach Kim and others on the sustainability team at sustainability@minneapolismn.gov. And if there's no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. And our next Ciac meeting will be on February 15th at 5 p.m. and held online. Any objections to us adjourning? Hearing none, thank you for helping us get to know all of you better. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday and a good rest of January.
Stay safe, everybody.
Happy 2022. Bye-bye.
Bye.